Our Highline Voices, 106.5 KQWZ LP FM. Connecting Highline and our region. Share your story. Our Highline Voices, history, cultural heritage, art, performances, contemporary, pop culture. We are very motivated to provide a vibrant community museum and authentic social gathering place. It truly takes a village to raise a museum. Despite the challenges, our daily inspiration is our eagerness to build a stronger and more connected community. This museum is from the community to the community. Our passion is for our visitors to have access to a broad spectrum of information sources and cultural perspectives. Our Highline Voices.
Hi everyone, my name is Nancy. I'm the director of the Highline Heritage Museum, and welcome back. Today we do have a beautiful soul and a beautiful person with us today, and I just want her to, to just share who she is, and hopefully you can appreciate her light and just the wisdom that she offers to everyone that interacts with. And so we're really happy, excited, and honored to have her here with us, and just excited to have you. So thank you, Roxana, for this opportunity. As always, I'm going to let her introduce herself, and then we'll take it from there. Are you ready?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. What's up, Highline community? My name is Roxana Pardo Garcia. I am a Burien resident, community member, small business owner, and nonprofit executive. So excited to be here with you all today. And thank you so much, Nancy, for the invitation to come and share a little bit about my story and a little bit about the work that I am doing here in Burien. I have been a Burien resident for 29 years. I actually had to do the math because I was like, I can't remember. My family moved to Burien in 1995 from the Rainier Valley, and we've been here ever since. I'm a product of the Highline public school system. I graduated from Highline, and I like to say my claim to fame was that I was the first Latina ASB president at Highline High School in 2007 and 2008. And then I went off and I went to the University of Washington, and then I came right back to Burien. And some of the first questions that I asked when I came back were, how can I serve my community? How can I use this degree to support the people in my community, to elevate the brilliance and the beauty of the communities that live here in Burien? And so I joined the Para los Niños board, which is a local nonprofit, and I served on that board for 8 years while I was working different jobs in nonprofit and then in government. And then when the pandemic hit, I launched a Latino food bank in partnership with Para los Niños, New Futures, like Burien Presbyterian Church, Colectiva Legal del Pueblo, and the White Center Community Development Association in my business. And it was only supposed to last for a couple of weeks. And here we are 4 years later as a fully formed nonprofit organization serving the Latino community of the Highline service area. And I'm really proud of the work that we're doing at Alimentando al Pueblo. And I also have a small business called Roxay Productions, where I get to do a lot of public speaking, a lot of training, workshops. I get to visit a lot of schools, a lot of colleges. And it's really awesome to be able to be in community and inspire young people. And so I love Burien. I love my community. If you know me, you know how much I love being from here and how much I elevate being from here, because as a young person, I did not see myself reflected in the community. And a lot of what I do today is in honor of that young person who didn't get to see myself represented. And oftentimes that is why I am where I'm at, and I do the things I do is so for young people to know that there are possibilities that exist in this world for them.
No, this is awesome. And I think that the first time we met each other was when we were serving on the Para los Niños, and then right away you got my attention. So it was great. No, the really key word that you just said about making sure that you feel represented, and not just you, but anyone in the community feel welcome and accepted, represented. It is so basic, like how do we go through living every day when we don't feel like we belong? And so that's one of the things that I'm always been grateful that you do that work too. And then it's just the idea of pushing, and it's just like, no, you're part of the community. No. You can read this, and you can also enjoy and have fun, and then being able to truly do something really cool. And so I know that your projects are comes from a place. Where is that coming from? Is from your heart, your passion, your family? What is that? What is the thing that kicks it and inspires you to do this work?
I think it's everything, really. This is always a really hard question for me because it's like Adrienne Marie Brown says, like I am the embodiment of so many experiences and moments in my life. And I do feel like so much of what I do in the community and how I live my life is very much tied to those moments and experiences, particularly as a young person in this community. I think there's one thing to have representation, and there's another thing to have representation with integrity and dignity.
Yeah.
And that is really what I'm trying to move, the energy that I'm trying to move in this world is, yes, we want people who look like us to do the good work, but those people need to have integrity, and those people need to be connected to something else that is so much larger than themselves or their egos. And I think what really moves me is my ancestors, is the
There you go.
people that
There
I'm
you go.
connected to. It's the people who are no longer here. I was just talking to somebody the other day about, like, I really do feel like I stand on the shoulders of giants. Like, I exist in this world not only because of the people that came before me and who are no longer here, but also the people who are here still doing the work. I used to work at New Futures as a high school student, as a tutor. And the women who were there, Lucia and Norma and Vero, they're now my colleagues, you know, and I get to, it's 20 years that I've known them, and it's full circle moment. And I see the ways and I remember the way that they would talk to me about community work and serving community, the moms, the dads, the kids, and like how much of that stayed with me, and how I see glimmers of that in the way in which I continue to serve. And so that's really what moves me. It's my relationships. It's my relationships to the people here. It's this responsibility that I feel to be able to usher in a new way of being and usher the possibilities that our communities are so deserving of here.
Absolutely. I think that the idea of providing those spaces, those opportunities, those really cool experiences, I think is something that allows everyone to get rich. You know, we enrich each other that way. And so you heritage and you know who is behind you, and yes, you on you know, you'll have giants right next to you. You can hug them and like, okay, and get inspired by it. I know that it's not always that easy to do this work. There's a lot of pushback too. There's a lot of balance in life, you know, rainy days, sunny days. There's a lot of struggles here too, but I do believe that that's what shapes us, and that's what we gather the strength with all the scars that we have, or we gather the fire that we need to go through. And I know that you have you're very public on the different issues that you do face, and it is inspiring to also be born in one of those spaces, you know, just be born was like, okay, despite of this and this and this, just pushing forward and just fighting through it, and just having a little bit of a grace in the day, and like just push forward and keep going. So now tell us more about you. Just this is about you. This is you. Just go for it.
So yeah, like I said, I essentially tell people that I'm born and raised here because I moved here when I was 5. I went to elementary school at Cedarhurst when it was the old building.
Okay.
And then actually today I just realized it's the anniversary of the Nisqually earthquake. And so I like was shot back into time. I think I was in 5th grade, and I was sitting in like my reading class, and I just remember like the tiles literally, like they were doing waves, and all of us started screaming, and then of course like the young trained people we were ran to go under our desks. And then after the earthquake stopped and it was safe, they took us outside, and then we just had recess for the rest of the day.
Wow.
And I just remember my mom picking us up. She's like stopped by the school, and we heard like the office lady, Roxana, Esteban, your mom is here. And we're like, what? And so we ended up going home. But So I have that very clear memory today. And then I went to Sylvester Middle School.
Nice.
And then I went to Highline. And so when I was at Highline, I was very disengaged. I think I was really angry because my dad had gotten arrested and my family kind of plummeted into poverty. My sister was 2 years old and my mom wasn't working because she was, attending to my sister. And so that was a very, very humbling moment at a very young age. I was 12 years old when all that occurred, and I got very angry.
Yeah.
Because we had money, we had two incomes in our house, and we never needed it for anything. And then all of a sudden, we were needing for everything.
Yeah.
And everywhere we turned to ask for help, like rejected us, like didn't want to help my mom, and so and also the nonprofit landscape was so different back then, was so different in the early 2000s. And so fast forward, I mean, I just was a really angry high school student. And I would open books and I didn't see stories about people like me. I remember in my world history class, I went into the back and I was like, let me look to see if there's any information on the Aztecs and the Mayans, because that's what we know. And there was 2 paragraphs in a world history book. And I remember I went to Half Price Books at South Center and I looked for those books and I bought a book. I bought a book on Aztec history and a book on Mayan art. And I remember just digging into them because I was like, I want to know more. And then fast forward, this is the time where I think the Gates family had invested some money in education and we went into academies. So they split Highline into 4 academies, and I ended up in the Renaissance Academy, which was the art academy. So I was in drama, I was in art, bookmaking, art, and shout out to Miss Kathy Hazen, and Miss Lisa Bade, who were 2 of the teachers who really, really invested in their students and really invested in the things that were important to them. And I remember Miss Bade actually gifted me a book on Mexican muralists, and just learning about muralists. And the book was absolutely gorgeous. And just them encouraging me to really, really do the things that I wanted. I became a part of Latino Club. So in 2006, so this is where it all really started. So in 2006 was the first year in my lifetime that we started to see a lot of protests and a lot of activity and political movement around comprehensive immigration reform. And for Latinos, for a lot of us, the theme or the topic of immigration reform is what politicizes us. It's what gets us involved. And I remember there was a student at Highline College who came to Latino Club at Highline and said, "Hey, we are going to be organizing a series of walkouts and protests. Do you want to join?" And of course, we're like, "Yeah." And the incentive was the walking out of class. But I learned a lot. And so I remember we coordinated with all of the high schools in Highline. We coordinated with some Kent schools, Renton, and we did this massive walkout on 2 occasions. And it really, really lit a fire in me. Nice. And I remember we were walking down Pack Highway, International Boulevard, and there was some construction happening at the DoubleTree on 188th. And of course, we're these young people and we're just walking down with our signs and our flags. And there was this gentleman and he screams, "You effing Mexicans, go back to where you came from." And being the hot-headed young person that I was, I turn around ready to fight him. And the college student says, "Hey, Roxana, no. Because what you do in this moment is actually going to reflect on all of us. We don't have the privilege of having your actions not reflect this entire group." And I think it was in that moment when he said that I was like, I need to manage my anger better. And I need to understand, I need to figure out what I need to do. I need to redirect this anger.
Oh, yeah.
And it was around that same time that I actually also met my mentor, Jackie Martinez Vasquez.
Okay.
So she worked at the district and she was doing the family and equity work before there was an actual office. Okay. And she came to our Latino Club and invited us to LEAP, which is the Latino Education Achievement Project conference that CMAR puts on every year.
Okay.
And it's a day of going to the Capitol, meeting our representatives, asking, for the whatever advocacy agenda they had created, and then understanding the ways that bills are passed and just understanding that whole legislative process. And I had never gone to anything like that. I don't think I had ever left Burien. I think I had gone to like Portland to visit my family in Cali, but I had never gone anywhere else. I had never seen the state capitol until then. And I just remember when I saw her at the club, I remember like I thought she was the goddess. Like I was like, who is this woman? Like I remember, I swear the memory that I have is like this light shining down on her as she's talking. She's a Salvadorian woman, and she's brown like me, and she's bilingual like me. And I was just so like I was like, I want to be around her. And when we went to the conference, her and I had a lot of conversations, and she shared a lot about what she was doing at the district. And she kind of took me under her wing after that. Nice. And she was one of the first ones to do equity training at the district, and was doing it with all the administrators of all the schools. And so she did one that was specifically focused on all of the ethnic groups. So she did one for like Black students, one for Pacific Islander students, one for Asian students, and one for Latino students. And when she had the one for Latino students, she pulled me to be on the panel. And she said, I remember like being really scared because it's all these like principals, my principal was there, like these assistant principals, all the admin of all of the schools. And I remember just like being really nervous. And she pulled me aside and she said, Roxana, don't ever be afraid to speak your truth. Nice. And she's like, and when you speak your truth, you speak it with your head held high. Nice. And it's been like that ever since. She was really strategic. I honor her and I value her for what she brought into my life and what she continues to bring into my life because we're still in relationship. But like that is where it started. And that is when I was like, I'm going to run for ASB president because I was tired of seeing the same kids over and over again in these leadership positions. And of course, I didn't come without any pushback. You know, people were angry. Of course. They, you know, I hear some of the comments and they're very, very, very reminiscent of what I hear now. But like, they were like, oh, this school's going to turn into Little Mexico and everything's going to be like diversity. And I'm like, yeah, because that's who your student body is. And so, yeah, I got a lot of pushback from a lot of the kids who were used to having that position and who were used to being in those classes. And interestingly enough, the year after that I left, that is when I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the statistics of the district completely changed. It went from a majority white district to a majority students of color district in 2009. Yeah. And so then we started to see a lot more diversity in the leadership classes at Highline. But that's really what moved me was my anger, and having really an adult in my life that was able to cultivate that anger in a way that I wasn't going to sabotage myself with. And I see that a lot with young people in the community, that they have a lot of anger, and rightfully so. You know, it's really violent when you have to live in a world that deprives you of your humanity. Like really violent and scary to live in a world where you don't know if you're going to eat tomorrow, or if your lights are going to be turned off, or if you have enough this or enough that. Like that's a really scary place to be as a young person. And I remember being there. And like, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with your anger. Your anger is an indicator that is something is not okay within you. And it's and within the environment or the conditions in which you're being forced to be, you know, to live and to survive. And so I like, that's what really is a lot of the motivating factor is this like really sacred and righteous anger that I have of wanting a different world. Of like, why is it that I have to question my humanity or my value or my worth? Why is it that the people who look like me have to do that as well? And so I think a lot of, like I said, the other day I was talking to somebody about how a lot of us who are doing this work are doing it from a place of healing our like inner child, because we saw something or we had an experience that made us question our worth or our value. Yeah. And we don't ever want anybody to feel that way. Yeah. You know?
No, yeah, I think that as a hard hearing person, without speaking for the first 8 years of my life and feel discriminated because of it, I got the sense that people do push back and anyone that's different than them. And so from a disability's point of view, from a woman's perspective, from a person of color, from the age, whatever, it's always been going to be somebody who's going to be pushing back. But in these demographics changing taking place historically, there is a reason or why you see this cultural shock a lot stronger than you'll see in New York and that you see in LA. Like I keep telling people, it's like, we are not those cities. It's just only within one generation that you see these transformations. And so it's a kind of almost like the lack of awareness that they don't realize that we are right next to a big city, Seattle, and they are more progressive, but we are in the more small town mentality area. Everyone knows each other. Everyone, knows your name, your history, and all of it. And so there is this really interesting when you want to do the work of a more diversity, inclusion, accessibility lens, but there's a culture shock that hasn't been processed properly in either side, either from the ones that either from a Native American culture to, the immigrants that came after that, and then going into what it is today. And so it's very, the anger that you feel is that cultural shock. It is that everyone has been thrown out of the cold water, like, okay, we have to deal with this situation, and that's what you're facing. And so no anger, I have my punching bag next to my desk. It's either those three things. So I cry, I punch, or I sleep, one of those three. And it's like, oh my goodness. My very first job was at the Northwest Immigrant Rights Project. And you were talking about the inequality. And I was right there in Seattle when I went out, and I just saw this guy swimming in one of those tall buildings. And like, oh, that's when I realized it was bad. But anyway, but this is about you. So I'm going to get back to you. We got 10 minutes to go. So,
All right.
Well, actually, we got a few more minutes. Yeah. So you're talking about who inspired you. So that's beautiful. So I'm glad that you were able to mention her name. I'm glad that she was able to take you under her wing and then being able to introduce you to a lot of things. Not everyone has the opportunity.
Yeah, no.
Not everyone has the opportunity to say, okay, come here, and then direct you and be able to be exposed to a lot of things. I remember when I came as an immigrant, they sent me to the school because I didn't speak in English. And so there was this kid who, obviously everyone, even including the teachers, were immigrants. I mean, all of them. There was not a single white person there. And so we were this facility, and then this guy, and I say, hey, hi, how are you? I say in Spanish. He said, no, I'm Chicano. I don't speak Spanish. So why are you here? And right away showed me that there was an embarrassment. He was embarrassed, an embarrassment of who his heritage. And that hurt because our culture is so rich and so beautiful. And so I come from Mexico City, where there's so many museums, and I grew up in that background with museums around me. And so when I came and like, wait a second, why you're no proud of where your heritage is and the good things that comes with it. And so I'm glad that you are a force driving and pushing, like, no. Just be proud of who you are. Keep looking up and then just keep pushing. So let's just say that I'm 5 years old. In front you're talking to a 5-year-old kid. What do you recommend dealing with that anger? I mean, now I think it is your turn to be a mentor to all the young person. So what is the message that you would like to share? How to control that anger? How do you transform that into fire to do something good and serve? Because it is true. When you do something that is impulsive and not paying attention to the consequences, it will throw it back at you, and it will just, whatever work you make progress, it will just push you back. And so it's just that you make one mistake and they just grab at that mistake and then just and then generalize everyone. And so, well, how do you recommend, or what do you think about that anger in the youth and moving forward from that?
Yeah, I think, it's really hard to just imagine talking to one individual, because really this anger is collective.
Yeah.
The anger that exists in our community is a collective anger. And I'm very, the saying of like, it takes a village to raise a child. Like, I believe that wholeheartedly. And I think that my conversation would be like multifaceted. Like, I'm going to talk to you, but I'm going to talk to your parents. Who are your caretakers? Who are your teachers? Who are your siblings?
Yeah.
Because it's really like a collective family situation. But I think for that young person, I would show them. I think there's one thing to tell people, but there's a whole other thing to show them.
Action speaks louder than words.
I want to show you the possibilities that exist in our community.
Yep.
I am one of them, and let me show you the other hundreds.
That's
and I think that to me has been the most powerful. I still do a lot of youth work, but I was doing it more like a full-time basis. And that was what I could do. I was working with young people in Auburn, and that was like, I need to take you out of Auburn. And that's what I did. We went on an incredible amount of field trips, and I took them to all sorts of different field trips. I took them to Mount Rainier to
Okay.
to hike. And I remember three of these Black girls, they were said, Miss Roxana, why are we the only Black people on the mountain? And I looked at them, I was like, well, why do you think? And then they started to be like, well, because our parents work all the time. It's like, I don't think we have like the gas money to come up here, to drive up here. And like they started to name all of these like barriers that are really like systemic,
Mm-hmm.
systemic barriers. And so to me, that is where the power is in showing young people, is in and broadening their lenses and saying, I took when I worked at the YMCA, I took 10 youth to Japan, and
Mm.
8 of those 10 were youth of color. And I want to say like half of them had never been on an airplane.
Wow.
So you can imagine the shock of being able to cross
The
like the Pacific,
planet.
to cross
Around
the
behind.
Pacific and
Wow.
go and immerse themselves like in 10 days in a whole entire different culture. And the transformation that I saw in those young people in those 10 days, I mean, there's nothing that compares to that. It's like I
Mm-hmm.
have to show you. I can't just tell you.
Yeah.
Telling you is gonna do nothing.
Yeah. No, 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 no. It's just actions, always
Yeah.
actions.
Mm-hmm.
And also setting, in my case, setting myself an example. So it's just like, hey, like in a way that don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
If I do that, pay attention to my mistakes and the issues that I'm paying with because of those mistakes. One, I want to tap into Alimentando Pueblo. I don't think I've shared this with you before, but as an immigrant, having no place in an apartment, sleeping on the ground for, I think, 3 years, I actually survived through food bank. And
Mm.
so I did not, I mean, it was all helping my mom clean homes and the same immigrant story. But food banks were what made us push and survive. I remember just having tacos de papa like all day,
All
all
the
the
time.
time, and just
Arroz
having
de
the potato.
frijoles.
Yes. And so I am very appreciative of the work of feeding people because it is a real thing. I mean, there's no way that we could truly survive without that type of assistance and help. And it's real. And it's real. And I mean, my parents were having jobs and we were just earlier, and then later we were starting to work too. But it was like, oh my gosh, it's just how do we make it day by day? And so I'm sure that the people that you help, I'm sure that there's this warm feeling of joy, gratitude, and it just and with dignity too, because that you use a word earlier, dignity. That when you provide that service, you're actually doing with the heart, and with kindness and compassion, and not from a place of I don't know. I've experienced
Mm.
people helping you, but there's like an entitlement. I don't know how to describe it, but almost like an arrogant
Mm-hmm.
position. And so I'm glad that the services that you provide are completely with compassion, care, and kindness. And I'm sure that you just let people breathe, just like today.
Yeah.
Why food?
Why food?
Why? What was it? What
What
was
was
it?
it? So I went to University of Washington. I got a degree in American Ethnic Studies,
Okay.
which is a relatively new field of discipline, but it's interdisciplinary in the sense that we learned economics, psychology, sociology, health. I mean, you name it, and it was embedded into the curriculum. So when I came back to the community, what I slowly started to realize as I started to do my own kind of healing was that I was noticing that a lot of people are really traumatized out there. And a lot of the conflict we actually see in our community is because there's traumatized people interacting with traumatized people.
Mm,
And at the nexus of that trauma, you get all of this incredible conflict.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when the pandemic hit, people like me, and when I say that, I mean people who have an understanding of racial inequities and social justice, predicted the outcomes of this pandemic. We predicted that Black and Brown people were going to die at disproportionate rates. So you can imagine, like, it's 1 week into the pandemic, and I'm sitting there with like an overwhelming sense of doom because I was like, my people are going to die.
Mm,
Like it felt inevitable, really, given the circumstances. I was like, my people are going to die.
yeah.
And there's this other teaching around genetic memory, that we inherit the memories of our aunts, of our parents, of our aunts, of our ancestors, of our grandparents. And so I had that in mind too. So I had this like feeling of my people are going to die. They're going to suffer. And the babies that are born from all of the people who experienced this pandemic are going to inherit those memories of trauma, of isolation, of grief, of loss, of insecurity.
Mm.
And so I actually was eavesdropping on a conversation with my mom and my aunt. And my aunt, my tia, was telling my mom how she needed to go to the food bank because she didn't have food, but that she was conflicted because she was like, sometimes they don't, she's like, often I can't take the food because I don't know how to cook the things that they give me.
Okay.
And then this light bulb went off. And I was like, why isn't there a food bank that gives people the food they eat? Like, why isn't there a Latino food bank? And I picked up the phone and I called Sandy at Colectiva, Virginia para los Niños, Lena at Lake B. I was making all these calls and I said, hey, what do you guys think about coming together to create, to do this? And they all said yes.
Nice.
And Lake B had church, the Presbyterian church had space so that you can use our space. And that's how it started. And I think to me, like it is about food, but it's so much more than food.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's really about how can we witness and hold a community during tragedy and devastation.
Coming to facing something together too.
And how do I create something that says, I see you?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, it's the food, and food is an incredibly important thing in our community. But what was really behind that was like, I want you to know that we are here, that we see you for the struggles that you are facing, for what you bring to this community outside of your labor, like for the contributions that you are making to the society. Like, that is what I wanted people to feel. It was like, I want you to know that there's community here. Yeah. And how do we create and really create an environment where we are helping people create memories that are connected to abundance, to love, to creativity, to food, so that when the babies that are born are also born with those memories and not just the memories of trauma. Yeah. I want to make sure that my community is not surviving in 7 generations. I want to make sure my community is thriving.
No, I get that. And and the funny thing is not just all physical, it's also mental and the narrative that you use, and then there's many different, it's very interesting. Now, we do have 7 minutes.
We could be here all day, Nancy.
No, I know. I mean, I really love the idea of having some areas where we align, and then also knowing how different we are, and not just you, but all of us are so different. And what is it that we bring to the table? Like I always see it more like a potluck format. Like, okay, who are you? Who are you? Like, okay, who are you? Let's can we just bring it together, and then all of us enjoy where we can, come out in that place. So. You got 5 minutes. What else would you like to share with everyone? Would you like to promote something? You like to talk more? Oh, one thing that you forgot, and I don't know if that's the area. The last time we were talking, you were sharing really cool stories, like your dad having that music store, and then it's just so anything you want to share.
So I have so many awesome stories about Burien. So my dad, Angelo's, the Italian restaurant, used to have a storefront in the back of the restaurant. It's boarded up now. But my dad had a music store called Discos Morelia, and it was the only Spanish music store in Western Washington.
Wow.
Just like rows of CDs and cassettes. And around that time was when Selena died, and he had all of the memorabilia.
Oh my gosh.
And so like that's what I grew up with. Like all of this music, all types of different music. I remember people driving from really far to come to his store, and they're like, I haven't heard this music in so long. I heard so much of that. And then that's where I became a really good darts player, because he had a dart machine. And we didn't have to put quarters in it because we had the key. So me and my brother would always just play darts. That was fun. And we had like a babysitter, and she would walk us around Burien, and we like walked to Burger King. And I remember Lamont's, the department store that was right in the middle of what is now the town square. And then there was a carniceria that was run by women, where Smarty Pants is right now.
Okay.
So I remember that one. And then there was a restaurant called Veracruz, and I don't remember where that one was at, but I remember seeing that restaurant. And I also remember when Rinconcito opened up for the first time. That was in 1997, and they were right by La Costa, and they were like a little tiny restaurant with 6 booths. And my dad, I remember he was the one who took us there, and he said, it's really good. He's like, and I think it was like the first taqueria that was opened in Western Washington, like in this area. Not Western Washington, but like in the Burien area. We hadn't seen taquerias. We just saw like the Aztecas and like the big, like the restaurants that were by folks from Jalisco.
Yeah.
And so I remember like Ricosito being packed on Sundays when they were still by La Costa. And then that's when they opened up their bigger restaurant. But I remember when they opened. And I remember going there as a family and how excited we were that there was a taqueria in Burien. And now there's so many taquerias and it's so hard to choose from because they're all so good. But yeah, I have a lot of fond memories of walking around as a school age child in Burien, and have seen it and I have witnessed all the transformations it has gone through since then. And so it's really, I'm very proud to be from Burien. I'm very proud to be able to serve the people of my community and the people who raised me.
Yeah.
Like, my mom was a single mom and I was not always at home and I was always out somewhere. I remember the teen center at the library when the library used to be at the community center, and that's where a lot of the teenagers would hang out. It was there in the parking ride. Like, I met an incredible amount of people at the parking ride. Like artists. I remember there was this one woman, her name was E. We called her E, and she could sing. She could sing, and we would I remember it was like a bunch of like us, like middle high school kids. We were just in there like listening to her because that woman could belt. Like, she just had vocals on her. And yeah, and then spent a lot of time at the park and ride, and also spent a lot of time at the teen center at the library.
Nice.
Like, and just being with young people who didn't have anywhere else to go after school, and just hung out there really and made friendships and community there.
Yeah, that's something that the majority of the people that come here looking at like really, really old photos is all about remembering, having those memories back, and then it just as how they were exposed as a kid. Almost everyone. Do you have my yearbook? Dude, can I, can I find my teacher? Can I find my classmate? Can I find my neighbor? Can I find my best friend? And it's this sense of just trying to capture some of those memories in a tangible way. And so I would love to do a project where we can start saving those stories.
Yeah.
We do have some stories, but I would like them more consistent, and then I just start collecting, not for this generation, but for the next generations to come. And so that's one of the things that we do here. But I love that you're able to share some of these memories. I hope that you collect more, and so you can keep sharing more. We got the time is over, but I just want to say thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to hear you, and then it just for you to share your story. And this is just a tiny little glimpse of who she is. And I hope that you get curious enough to just go with her and research her, and then just participate with whatever project she's working on. So
yeah, we have I do a lot of stuff in Burien because I'm about like, let's do things in Burien. So Alimentando al Pueblo, which means to feed the people, houses the only Latinx food system in the entire country.
Oh shit. Sorry. Sorry. We'll edit this.
That was genuine.
No,
That was
no,
genuine. We house the only Latinx food system in the country. Burien houses the only Latinx food system in the entire country.
Wow.
This food system was created by Burien residents. Like that, I want to say that because I'm so incredibly proud of that.
You should.
So incredibly proud of that, that we were able to create a new model, and that we're creating a food system that is for and by our community. And then we also house Bidi Bidi Bomb Bash, which is our festival in April, celebrating one of our most beloved icons. And it is the only Selena festival in the entire Pacific Northwest. No one else is housing a festival like this. And again, it is housed in Burien.
That's awesome.
It's housed in Burien. Again, the festival is Bidi Bidi Bomb Bash. You can find all of our stuff on social media. We're on Facebook, on Instagram. We have websites, and everything stays up to date. And so I hope folks come out. Again, we pull people from all over the region, all over the state, really, to come to this festival because of who we're celebrating. And I'm really, really proud that this little girl from Burien, this little brown baby from Burien, is able to do all these things for the community. And so I hope that you come out and celebrate with us and support our work and the ways that in which you have capacity to. But I welcome you to join our community.
Great. See why she's here. See why is a need for us to interview her. Well, the time is up, but I just want to say thank you again for this opportunity.
Gracias, Nancy.
And I hope that all of you get curious and trying to research who she is. Okay, thank you, everyone.
See you. Nos vemos.
Bye.
Our Highline Voices, 106.5 KQWZ LP FM.
We envision ourselves sitting at a round table where no one is the leader and stories are heard respectfully, regardless of gender, age, sexual orientation, disabilities, or ethnicity. We want to embrace our differences and similarities. We are creating a place where visitors can connect with the stories and each other. Our mission is we collect, preserve, and tell the stories of the Highline region and its people. We want to extend our mission outside the walls of the museum. Our Highline Voices represents us all, honoring our past, celebrating our present, and uniting to cultivate our future. This project allows us to reach out to demographics who might be unable to visit the museum. People with disabilities, low-income families, people who don't trust museums, and more. In partnership, we are launching a locally programmed new radio station at the museum, featuring recorded and live Highline's heritage, history, culture, arts, and more. Are you interested in sharing your story? Email director@highlinemuseum.org.